This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com. And tonight we are doing another paranormal slash consciousness related podcast with a man who's an author and has done a lot of research in a lot of different paranormal related topics, such as shadow people, which I'm not that familiar with, ghost hunting, Bigfoot, and near death experiences. He's the author of numerous books that we'll talk about as the show goes on. But Todd Wilcox, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, Hannibal. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to our time together.
I appreciate you coming on. And to start this off, shadow people, I don't know anything about this. Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. Yeah. So what you have is this. There's multiple different types of shadow people. The main one that I've studied and look at has been called the Hat Man. Has been called I call him the watching man, because typically what he does is just watch you. And this is an entity that's about 6 feet tall, fairly muscular built, all in dark color. It might be black, it might be dark gray, it might be dark blue. You know that it has a face, but you can't see it. It seems to be wearing a helmet, and it looks like it's wearing a cape of some kind. My experiences have been that they just watch you. There are some people that report that they do much more than watch you, that they're a bit of a problem. And the funny thing is, I've talked to hundreds of people about this thing. I've seen it myself, and I've talked to hundreds of people about it. And the only people that have ever had trouble with these things, I have 3 friends that are all retired police officers, and they've had bad experiences with this thing, and they saw the glowing eyes. I have never seen these things with glowing eyes. I've heard about it from these 3, and then you read about it. But yeah, for me, they just seem to be watching, and they're curious about what we're doing. That's what they've done each time that they've presented in my life. And for, the majority of the hundreds of people that I've spoken to about this, that's all they do with them, is just watch and look at them.
Now, could these be mistaken as ghosts? Because it sounds a lot like some of the ghosts that people report seeing.
Absolutely. And they disappear fairly rapidly. So normally when you see them, you just have a quick chance to look. You see it and it's gone. Much like a ghost would be. You don't get a good look, for a long time. But they could be a number of things. They could be ghosts. There's a theory that they're aliens. There's a theory that they're transdimensional. There's a theory that they're time travelers. There's a theory that it's even a remote viewer, that what you're seeing is the personification of a remote viewer that's checking on you. All those things are possible. I did talk to one person that when he saw it, it was at the foot of his bed, and it walked through him. It walked up through his body until it was behind him, standing behind him, basically in the wall in his bedroom, and looking out over him. And as soon as this thing got behind him, his perspective changed to where he was now looking through its eyes, and he heard it tell him, "You are me." And so he thinks it was a part of him reviewing him, like a life review, or maybe a future him looking back at the event. It's really hard to say what they are. They will shock you when you see them. But what I can tell most people is there's really nothing to worry about. They're strange, they're different, but they, for the most part, have proven, in my experience, to be harmless just watching.
And you said you had an actual experience with one of these things. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, there's been a number of times. The first time that I remembered it, I was in my mid-30s, working overnight at a hardware store, stocking a plumbing aisle. And you know how you feel when something's watching you? Well, I had that feeling, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. My arm started to bristle a little bit. And I turned, and behind me was one of these things just watching. It was only there for a second. I didn't get a great look at it, and it was gone. And it did this, probably 6 or 7 times over the next couple months I would see it. I would purposely want to go look in that aisle because honestly I thought it was a ghost and that it would show up only there. And then I saw it later. I've seen it, I'd say probably on average once or twice a year since then. I don't see it very often, but from time to time. I did do a regression, through hypnosis, a regression, and I believe the first time I ever saw these things, I was a little boy playing in our basement, and I was on one of those horses that have the springs, 4 springs on it, 2 up front, 2 in the back, and you just rock it. And I loved watching Lone Ranger and different TV shows like that. So I would get on that horse and just ride it like it needed to go 100 miles an hour. And what I saw through that hypnotic regression was I was down in that basement room of our house when I was a little kid, and there was about 12 of them there watching me, and I wasn't concerned. So I think I've been seeing them for a long time, still trying to figure out what they are. It's part of the fun, just learning what they are and talking to people that have had experiences with them. It's shocking. I would say more than 10% of the population has seen these things. So yeah, it's really, really something out there.
Now, there's a fan on here that I guess is someone that knows you that says, thank you for the interesting knowledge about the alien beings you saw around me. I see them a lot. Hope to hear from you again. So what is this all about?
So with my book, Slipstream Shaman, when I'm on different shows, I offer people free healings. I'll be honest, I'm about a month behind right now. I've just been overwhelmed in them, but I do an energy healing for anybody that asks. There's no charge for that. They just need to send me an email. If they go to slipstreamshaman.com, there's an email link there, or if you just go to slipstreamshaman@gmail, send me a request and I'll do a healing for you. And and I hope I'm saying this right, Mikhail. I believe this is a friend from Sweden, if I remember right. If I can, I get a little confused. There has been a lot lately, but yeah, I do free energy healings for anybody that asks.
So for those that aren't familiar with that, what would be involved in one of these?
Oh, great question. So it's all done remotely. You don't have to come see me. You don't even have to know it's taking place. What happens is, and it's really what my book is about, is teaching people how to do this very thing, Slipstream Shaman. I invite people into what I call my quantum room. It's where I do healing work. It's where I can manipulate energy and spirit. And so I will invite their spirit, their essence, whatever you want to call it, into that room. And it can happen from anywhere, from Sweden, from where all have we done? Ireland, Scotland, England, Spain. I've got one that's going to be in Australia soon, all over the United States, all over Canada. And I do these remotely. So I will invite their essence, their spirit, whatever you want to call it, into this quantum room that I work in, and look for anomalies on them. I have a team that helps, a warrior team, a love team, and then at the end of it, I call in their 7 generations to give them protection, connection, and love. But yeah, we look for anomalies on these things, and they're metaphors. We're pulling things out of people. Like we might pull a wrench out of somebody's knee and heal that wrench that was there, and then heal the knee area. Do you have a minute for me to talk about this a little more? Is it okay if I go into detail?
Sure, because it's the first I've heard of it, so sure.
Okay, so what we do, this all started, I was in a paranormal group, a ghost hunting group, about, close to 20 years ago. And I had a person from another group reach out and want to create a group that would go help people that nobody else could help. So if they had a haunting that they couldn't get rid of, if there was a possession or whatever the case may be, if other groups couldn't help them, we would go help them. And I said, that's great. I would love to help. But I don't know what we would do that's different, because our groups are the ones that, aren't helping them. So how are we going to get better? And we started talking about different things we could do. One person said, well, let's study demonology. Let's study the Bible. Let's study all these things. And one person suggested that we get a shaman to come in and work with us and teach us how to use energy for our protection and for the protection of the people that we were trying to help. And that was where it all started. I'm in the training, and the shaman, it was a lady, and she was showing us how to access our energy. There's in your palms, you have places where you can sense energy, and she was having us bring these together, and you start feeling your energy. And she was saying it's going to be red, and it's going to be hot. Well, unfortunately, mine was blue. It was almost the color of the shirt I'm wearing, light blue, and it was cold. And everything she kept saying was contradicting what I was experiencing. So I backed out. I didn't say anything. I just kind of disengaged, paid attention to what she was teaching, the process, but I didn't participate any longer because it was just too confusing with her saying these things. And so I went home and I started practicing it. I found my energy, and what it was a light blue energy, and it, as it grew and as I got used to using it, I started covering myself with it for protection. And then I started sending it to the houses that we were going to investigate, and putting it around the house to protect the house from whatever was bothering the people. Even using that energy, I would push out anything that was in the house. And so we were giving people a little bit of help, getting rid of things that were bothering them, helping them feel better. And as I continued to practice using this energy, one day I went from being just in my living room with the energy around me. I went into a place that I now call my quantum room. And at the time, what it looked like is, if you can imagine being inside a thunder cloud, a storm cloud, a big dark storm cloud. It looked like that. It was dark gray. There was mist all around, kind of swirling around me. And what I found was I could do things there that were much, much more powerful than anything I could do outside of it. So I could invite people in and cover them with energy and protect them. I could meditate. For years, I tried to meditate, and all it was me sitting down, trying to clear my mind, and then falling asleep. But once I found my energy and went to this quantum room, I could actually meditate. And through meditation, I had been searching for my purpose, and for years it eluded me. I thought it was going to be some grand thing, but when I found my purpose, all it was 2 words: to help. And so I continued down that road of helping people, and I didn't realize it, but I'd always been the person that helped. I'd go the wrong way. If everybody's running away from a situation, I'm running in to help. I went into the military to help people, not so much to do the crazy stuff and shoot machine guns and all that. I was there to help. My interest was to help, and I just didn't realize that was my purpose, was to help, until I found it during meditation in that room. Since we were looking to go to homes that might have a possession, we talked many times about that we needed to take warriors with us, and the people that I was with thought they would ask like Archangel Michael to come help them, or Jesus to come help them. They wanted something to come in and help fight. And so I thought, well, maybe now that I have access to this room where I can do anything I want, maybe I'll develop a warrior team that will help us. And just by thinking that, just by saying I want a warrior team, the mist cleared a little bit, and this little beagle came out. And it was Desi. It was a dog I'd had before, and she had recently passed. She had been gone for a couple of years at this point, and she came into the room. And I couldn't have picked a better thing for a warrior lead than her. She was a tiny little beautiful dog, but she was absolutely ferocious. She would fight any dog that came in our yard. If a rat or a snake was in the yard, they were done for. And so she was afraid of nothing, and she had the best nose you could ever imagine. So she could find things that other things couldn't. And then other dogs that I had lost over the years started coming in and joining the group. Cats. Since that time, I have had horses. Recently, a giraffe entered and started working with us. An uncle that had passed away that was one of the baddest guys on the planet. He was like a cross between Red Foreman and Clint Eastwood. You didn't mess with him. He served in World War II and also Korea as a Marine, highly decorated. And everybody was afraid of him and wanted to be like him. So another great addition to the group. So I had this warrior group, and when I would invite people into the quantum room, the first thing that would happen is Desi would start sniffing around them, and she would find things on them that shouldn't be there. So one of my favorites is had a lady on my radio show, and we were talking after the show was over, and I asked her if it was okay to do a healing, and she said yes. And I didn't know what her health situation was, but when I invited her in, Desi started sniffing around. She was very curious about her back, started digging on her back, leaned inside her, and pulled out this rag. Now, again, this is all in a place of energy and spirit. She's not physically there. I'm not actually taking things out of people, but there was something in her energy that manifested as a rag that was wrapped around her heart. And I didn't know that she had been having heart problems. But anyway, we take the rag out, we burn it. At that point, we were just burning these things. I was kind of violent with them. We would burn these things that we would take out, just incinerate them, make them gone. But what I found was sometimes people would start having trouble again. And the first thing I thought was, well, nature abhors a vacuum. If we take something out of somebody, we need to put something in. So I created a love team. And again, different things from my past came to help me with the love team. And they would just, as soon as we remove something from a person, they would fill that spot with love and seal it so it could start healing and be safe from anything coming back. And then I remembered something else, that most things start with a positive intention. So all these things that we were incinerating probably started as something that we needed that helped us. And so if you picture, say you're 8 years old and your arm hurts, your muscle hurts. And so you take a belt or a cord and you wrap it around your bicep really tight, and that makes it stop hurting. Well, that's great for today, right? But what about next week? What about a month from now? What about 2 years from now or 10 years from now? That arm's in trouble. And that's what happens with some things. We get things that start off helping us that have some kind of a positive intent. And as we grow, they no longer are needed, no longer work for what we needed, and start to actually hurt us. And I call those companions. And what we did with this lady's companion was we pulled it out. We sent it energy to clean it up and get it ready for healing. And then we filled it with love. And it transformed from this rag into this beautiful little boy that looked up at her with just love eyes and then walked away. And so what that was doing was returning this thing to its original energy, to its rightful energy, so that it could go out and either help somebody else or continue to help her just in a better capacity. And so that's what the healings are about. We look for things that don't belong on the person. We remove them from them. We heal those items. Then we heal the person. And then at the end, we call in the 7 generations. And that's 7 generations from their past, 7 generations from their future that are there to give them love, connection, and protection. They just surround them and give them these things. And by healing people, healing them today, what you see is it goes back in time. It heals them, from in the past. It heals their relatives. And then it comes forward and it heals their future so that those things aren't a problem anymore in the future. And that's kind of where the Slipstream name came from. When you work in a place of spirit and energy, that's the shaman part. And then the Slipstream is that we're going fast and we're using energy to really propel it forward. I like to explain it by if you're driving down the freeway and a semi truck passes you and it pushes you off to the side and then it gets by and it sucks you back over where you were, that's part of its Slipstream. If you get behind it into that sweet spot, just like in NASCAR with the drafting, you can go faster than you had been going, but you're using less energy. Your RPMs are going down. And that's what's happening with this. You're doing healing. You're helping yourself feel better. You're fixing things in the past with relatives and other people. You're healing your future and you're healing your present as well. And that's what I teach you to do in the book, Slipstream Shaman.
How did you get involved in all of this? Is it from having experiences when you were younger, or did something happen to spark your interest?
Yeah, I think I've always had that interest. As a little kid, I remember I loved watching science fiction, loved watching anything with monsters, loved the voodoo things, watching voodoo and the shaman and the medicine man, when I would watch Westerns. And I was always attracted and drawn to that, what they did, where I didn't really understand medicine, but I thought it was just absolute magic and beyond cool that the, that they could just pick up a root or something and grind it up and help somebody. And so that, I think, is where it started. And maybe it's a past life thing. I don't know. Maybe I've always been interested in it, but really I can remember as a little guy watching TV shows and if there was a ghost, if it was sci-fi, if it was about, healing, if there was a voodoo or a shaman or a medicine man, that was my most interested part of the TV show. So I think it's always been a thing.
Now it sounds like you do some remote ghost hunting. Do you actually do in-person ones as well when you're going into these houses, and potentially it sounds like you're trying to cleanse some of these places?
Yes, I do remote, and I also do in person. I haven't done a lot of the in person lately, just too busy with work and the book and everything. I probably should do more. I'm a little bit away from my from my team that I do that with right now, so maybe I will hook up with another team to help. But yeah, we can do it remotely, and I've done many house cleansing remotely to help people just have a better place. I was working with a house that actually had a couple people die in the basement, and she thought there was something going on, and it turns out we found a portal down there and closed that off. And there was also 3 of those watching men that I talked about earlier watching me the whole time I was down there cleansing it. I did that remotely, but yeah, there was 3 of those things watching and very interested in what I was doing. They were blocking the stairs for some reason while I was doing it. As soon as I had that whole basement and house cleansed, they just moved away from the stairs so I could walk out and leave. That was one of my more recent experiences with the watching men.
So you also do research into near-death experiences. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally had a couple near-death experiences. One when I was less than 6 months old. And what happened there was I was in my crib, I died, and my my parents were sleeping in another room. And I went to another place where there was this female entity holding me. And the weird part was I was still had a baby's perspective looking up at this lady. And I had a baby's perspective, but I also had all my faculties. I was as smart as an adult, maybe more. Like, I probably had access to all my spiritual knowledge as well. And she was holding me and saying, "You should have been mine. You should have been mine." And a male came over and said, "You have to let him go. He has to go back. You have to let him go." And then I was thrown back into my body. And what my dad told me, decades later, we never talked about it until I was probably in my 30s, was that they lived in an apartment that had an old oven, and it had one of those timers on it that you would set, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, and they'd make that buzzing noise. And that thing never worked except for the night that I was on the verge of a crib death. It went off. They both immediately knew what was wrong, ran to me, grabbed me, picked me up. And as soon as they picked me up, I started breathing. And I remember just a huge amount of pain as I was starting to breathe again. I saw during that time that I was gone, I did see a tunnel like people talk about. There were things on the edge of the tunnel walking. It was gigantic. The tunnel was massive. And on the edges of the tunnel, things were walking, people, animals, different things going both directions towards me in a way. There were things flying in the middle of it that looked a little bit like a Pegasus or that kind of thing. And I didn't have any other interactions with the spirit. And then when I was in high school, I had a really bad hernia. It must have happened right after my physical for cross country. I went through the cross country season with this thing. I went through the wrestling season with this thing. I worked for my stepdad doing framing. and just had this gigantic hernia hanging down there. And I was embarrassed to talk about it, and wasn't going to say anything, hoped it would just repair. And finally I saw a TV show where they talked about testicular cancer, and I figured, that might be that. So I told my mom and my stepdad, and they took me to the doctor and immediately put me in for surgery because it was so huge. And while I was in surgery, everything was good. And then I left my body. I'm not sure what happened. I left my body. I was in the corner of the room, kind of up high looking down. And I remember seeing the surgeon screaming at the anesthesia guy screaming at the surgeon. One of the nurses just ran out of the room as fast as she could run. And there was just chaos. And I wasn't out very long, just seconds probably. And then I was sucked back into my body, and I was out cold because of the medicine they had given me. The next day, this was in late 70s. And when you had a hernia operation, then you were in the hospital for a while. It was like a week that you stayed in the hospital after. And the first day I'm there, the surgeon came through. He's checking the scar, checking the wound. And I asked him about that, what happened, what caused me to die. And he went absolutely pale. I said, no, nothing like that happened. And it freaked him out. And he never came back. I was there for a week, and I had a different surgeon checking on me after that. He never came back to check on me. I don't know if he was worried that I was going to sue or embarrassed that something had happened, but it was. I wish that more would have happened during that. I wish I would have seen the light and talked to people and done all this stuff. But yeah, it was just out of body looking at it and then being sucked back in.
So what's your theory on what all that was, as far as what happens when you pass from those experiences?
Yeah. So I feel very confident that when we pass, that it's not the end. And I feel very confident that that goes for everything, animals, insects, everything that has a life force. I believe it continues. And while I'm not afraid of death, I'm not afraid of people dying. I am afraid of missing them, of losing them. So, it's just a selfish look now, as, I won't get to, if somebody passes, I won't get to see them now. But I am fully convinced that we're going to see them in the future. I also think that wherever we go to is a place that we can create it to be what we want it to be. With the work I've done in the quantum room, and I've got to believe that that's just a small amount of potential compared to what you can do when you're in pure spirit form. And so from what I can do in that quantum room, I would believe that once you pass, you create the heaven that you want. You create the world that you want. And when you talk to people that have had near-death experiences, they tend to see the people that they align with. So if somebody studies Allah, they see Allah. If somebody studies Jesus and believes in Jesus, they see Jesus. And so they see the entities and gods that they worship and believe in. And I think that's because they create their own reality once they leave.
And as far as ghosts, what do you believe they are?
That's a $64,000 question. They could be a lot of things. They could be spirits. I struggle to believe with people that you talk to that have gone to the other side with near-death experiences, the beauty, the love, the amazing thing that takes place once you're on the other side. I struggle to believe that they're going to be hanging out just to talk to people or to watch people or whatever. They might come check on us, but it's just so much better than here that I can't imagine them visiting. So I think some things are ghosts, but I tend to believe most of what we're encountering are things from another dimension. You get to a place, you get to a haunted area that has a lot of ghost sightings. My thought is it's probably a place where the veil between 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions is very thin. And what you're actually witnessing and hearing are things from that other dimension, live people like us. But for whatever reason, we're in a place where we can hear that other dimension. There might be spirits visiting us. And it wouldn't surprise me if some do, but I don't think most of what we think of as a ghost is the spirit of somebody. I think it's more we're able to see something from another dimension for just that moment as we tie in with them. I often picture going on a ghost hunt, and for those people that have seen different ghost TV shows, you know how it goes, where you're doing an EVP session trying to get something recording and you're asking questions, and many times you get answers to those questions. And I always thought it would be funny. What if there is a paranormal team on the other side of this dimension doing the same thing? They're checking out a haunted place. They're hearing us. They're asking questions. We're going back and forth. Both sides think they're talking to a ghost when in reality, it's 2 sets of humans in different dimensions and different realities that are conversing with each other in a place that has a thin veil.
Now, you mentioned that, or the person that you did the one healing with mentioned that you saw an alien around them. Are you an investigator into that realm of beings as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the idea of space travel. I love the idea of this involvement. And there's been several times where I see an alien as I'm doing the healings. Some have been good, some not so good. But yeah, I think there's a lot going on out there, and I don't understand their travel, but I think it's probably a transdimensional travel where they can go from one place to another very fast. I used to tell jokes about being abducted. I would when I still have my radio show, but when I talked to people that had been abducted, I would tell them, hey, I'm trying to get abducted by the aliens. And as soon as I get on the ship, I'm going to commandeer it. I'm going to take over the ship and I'm going to go wherever I want. I'm going to travel the universe. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to do all this stuff with their ship. And they would just turn white and be scared for me. And people that studied people that had been abducted or contacted would tell me, Todd, you can't talk like that. These things, this is bad. You need to stop acting this way. And so did the people that have been abducted. And one time I was traveling and I stayed at one of those little motels that's on the side of the road that are shaped like an L. They're fairly old. Used to be all over Route 66. I love staying in those. And I'm staying in one of these old motels, and I look out the back window. There's a little small window. I peek at it, and there's a field back there that has broken vehicles, washers and dryers that have been abandoned, refrigerators, just basically a junkyard out behind this thing. I lay down, fall asleep. Somewhere in the middle of the night, I wake up, and that whole wall is gone. That whole back wall is gone. And I can see that field. I can see all the trucks and cars and all the stuff that's been abandoned. And these different things are walking into the room. There were about 4 or 5 different size gray aliens. There was what people call the Icelandic, the tall blonde aliens. There were a couple different insect-looking aliens. And there was another one that it reminded me of a tumbleweed. It was almost just like energy rolling around, something that I hadn't seen before or heard about before. And these things get me out of bed. They surround me and in no uncertain terms said that you need to stop. It's not funny. We're not going to let you continue to make these jokes about us. What we're doing is not funny, and it's not for you to make fun of. And to make sure that you stop, you're going to be sick for the next 3 days. We're letting you know that this is a punishment. And you're going to be sick for the next 3 days. And I was absolutely violently ill for the next 3 days, to the point where I was afraid maybe they had given me radiation poisoning, and I was getting ready to go to the hospital, and finally started feeling better. But yeah, you don't want to mess around and pretend with these guys. But I think there's a lot of people being visited.
And I know you do a lot of research with Bigfoot as well. What's your opinion on what these things are? A lot of people have been saying lately that there's some type of connection with Bigfoot and UFOs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe there absolutely is. I've talked to a number of people, a lot of contactees that have been aboard ship and they see Bigfoot while they're on board, and as well as aliens. We've also found a lot of Bigfoot sightings around areas that have UFO sightings. And so, yes, I believe there's a connection. I believe that Bigfoot is a transdimensional creature that can go in and out of different dimensions. Uh, Another training that I did was to get my spirit guides, and one of the guides that came to me was a female Bigfoot. And as I was interacting with her, and you kind of become one with this guide, I can remember looking down a mountain range and truly believing that I could just go 20 miles in less than a second, with this thing helping me. And I didn't act on it because there was people there with us, but I absolutely believed that we could just go down this mountain range and be a long way away in no time at all. And I've read stories of people doing Bigfoot investigations and trying to make contact and leaving things where Bigfoot, where they had the sightings, and getting home. And then the people drive home and they're hours away, 3, 4, 5 hours away. They get home and find those items in their yard. So it really, really leads me to believe that they're not just this wild ape that's running around, that might be killing and eating people. Certainly there could be some bad ones, just like there's bad people, but I don't think they're of this planet, of this earth. I think they visit here and they can leave, and they just, I don't know if they're here for vacations or for training or what they're doing, but I don't think they're from here. And I think that's part of the reason why we've never found dead ones or body parts or anything like that. And also why I think that the legend of Bigfoot or Yeti or Sasquatch, whatever you want to call these things, they're virtually on every continent of the world. There's stories of them. People have talked about them for thousands and thousands of years. You don't just have that come up. There has to be some kind of tie-in. And for me, based on how they just vanish when you're looking for them, and how you'll find tracks in the snow that lead nowhere and just stop. I think they have a dimensional component to them where they can just leave.
And what do you think the best Bigfoot video is out there if people want to go look one up? Because I haven't seen really a great one myself.
Oh, nice question. I do love that they've cleaned up the old Patterson video to where you can actually see muscle movement, and that's actually a female Bigfoot. That one's my favorite. What I'm seeing a lot of now is computer generated Bigfoot, and not very well made. So I don't see a lot of good ones. I've seen some where they're moving across snow covered landscapes that look very good. And unfortunately, I don't know a name of them or a link to give people, but YouTube has a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff on TikTok that I see, and so there's a lot of stuff going on with people having their cameras out. What I will say is, I always used to wonder why we didn't have more video of things. And I was on a ghost hunt with people from other groups. There was 3 different groups represented. There was 4 of us in 3 different groups. And we were in a place called Eureka, Utah, out in the west desert of Utah. And we're out there and we see a UFO on the far side of the valley coming towards us. We're watching it. It passes by us probably 100 yards away from us. And this thing was probably 100 feet high. And not one of us took a picture. Not one of us turned on a video camera. We all had our audio recordings going because we were doing a ghost hunt, but nobody took a picture of it. And so when you see things like that, it's so overwhelming that you really forget what to do. And so it wouldn't shock me that there's been a lot of people that have seen Bigfoot. They have their phone and just don't get the phone out in time. But I am seeing a lot of really bad videos of Bigfoot lately. I would love to hear about the one that you saw that you like.
The only one I've seen that was really good is the Patterson one, and then I've seen another one more recently where it's two people in the jungle somewhere that are hiking, and they see an unusual creature that kind of shoots off. But I forget what that one was called. But that one was pretty good. But I haven't seen anything really exceptional since that 1970s footage. But
Yeah. What I would like to see people do is, with GoPros, now that they've gotten, very inexpensive, what if we, when we're out in the woods looking for Bigfoot or doing different things, instead of having the camera pointing forward where we're watching, what if we put it so it's behind us, so it's watching what's behind us and what is watching us? And I'm curious what the difference would be in things that we see. Maybe we'll see a cougar tracking us or a bear tracking us that we didn't know was there. But I'm hoping that by looking at things backwards, that we may see some catch some Bigfoot video that Bigfoot thinks we've gone past and makes itself a little more known, a little more present where it can be seen, not thinking that we're seeing them, but then we catch them on video that's pointed behind us instead of in front of us.
there's a fan on here that wants to know, is Bigfoot at Area 51?
I think there's Bigfoot everywhere. I don't know if there's one inside. One time I would love something that I need to do in the future is do some remote viewing and go to Area 51. There very well could be something out there. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and I really thought that was the only place that you would find Bigfoot, is Washington, Oregon, maybe in California. But it turns out they're everywhere. They're in Utah, they're in Idaho. I've talked to people in many different states and countries that have seen what we would call Bigfoot, and so they're everywhere. So it wouldn't surprise me. Nothing would surprise me if we got to go to Area 51. Who knows what we'd find? Are we going to find some alien craft that we're doing reverse engineering on? Are we going to find some aliens? Is there an alien helping, or a team of aliens helping us? Is there Bigfoot there helping us, being involved? I do believe that Bigfoot and different cryptids could be not working with UFOs, but somehow aligned with them, whether they are being transported by them or whatever the case, Mothman, things like that. I think all might be connected to UFOs.
Do you feel in your remote viewing that you could travel through time as well, or what are the limitations on your remote viewing abilities?
Yeah, I think you can travel in time. When you're in that place of energy and spirit, everything's different. When we think of time right now, we think it's linear. That's what our physical bodies can see. Like if you pick up a spaghetti noodle and you just hold it straight out in a line, that's how we as humans see time. When you get into that place of energy and spirit, it's all mashed together. Like you take that same piece of spaghetti and just wad it up in a ball, and different parts of the spaghetti are touching each other. And that's the way I see the past and the future and the present working time wise when you're out of your body. And so, yes, I believe you can do remote viewing to the past, to the future. There's been some pretty good studies on that. We know that there's a thing called retrocausality, where you can do healings now that help things in the past. You can there's one of the things that it's going to be in my second book is about healing. It's releasing trauma, and that goes to the past. So yes, I do believe you can have an effect on things that that have already taken place in our timeline. When I wrote my book, the Slipstream Shaman book, I put in experiences that I had, and I described the different healings that I would do with people, and I wrote them. I just make notes as I go, because I forget what I encounter when I'm doing this, I have a very limited time to make any notes, or I don't remember what happened. My human brain doesn't align real well with that place of spirit and energy, and I tend to forget it very fast. So I have to make notes, and the notes make complete sense for what I witnessed and what I experienced, but they don't make sense for somebody that reads English. And so I'm using present, future, and past tense in the same sentence, and it's just a jumbled mess. I give it to my editor, and she says, "You've got to pick one. I don't care which one you want to go with, but you can't write like this. You're going to make people crazy. They're not going to understand you." And so that and many other things lead me to believe that time doesn't exist the way we understand it, and that yes, we can travel in time and affect change.
And I understand you're a big believer in spirit guides. Could you explain exactly what those are? I've heard people like Sylvia Brown talk about them on various shows and books.
Sure. Yeah. So my spirit guides aren't like what a lot of people have, and it might be just because I'm weird or whatever. But what I find is when I've done past life regressions through hypnosis, I have never seen a past life of mine where I was a human. It's always in an alien body. And what I tend to see is the moment of my death in those things. I don't get to see a lot of it, just the moment of death. And my guides are not human. My high level, I've got a high level group of guides. There's 3 of them. One I can see very well, and it looks quite alien. The other 2 are not quite in phase where I can see them, and so they're just a little bit, a dimensional shift, a time shift. There's something keeping me from seeing them clearly. I can see their outline, and I get vague thoughts and pictures of what they look like, but I can't quite see them. I do know they're alien. So my 3 highest guides are alien. Many people's guides are angels, or many times they'll have Jesus or different religious people, but mine aren't that. And that's what came to me, was they're very alien. The next level of guides below that, I have 2. One is a bull elk, and one is a female Sasquatch. And then just below that are the teams that help me do the nuts and bolts work: the dogs, the giraffe, the horses, the cats that have come to help me. There's a rat that helps as well. All those things are guides, more of a peer group than a guide, those animals. And then the elk and the Sasquatch are a higher level guide, and the very highest are the aliens that come to help me. And so I know that when I first started doing a lot of healing for people that I hadn't met, I had to get with my highest level guides and help them get me tuned in to finding people through emails. And before I did that, I wasn't connecting. If I had known you in some way, like you and I talking today would be enough for me to send a healing to you, or to one of your friends or relatives. If you ask me to, I can use your energy to get me there. That would be easy. But if I get an email from somebody that just heard me on a show or heard about me, it was harder for me to find them. Getting with those highest level guides, they've helped me get in tune to where I can get to those people and help them.
So when you do these healings on people, what are the benefits that they get from the healings?
It's been all over the board. People with damaged knees, with burns, we've been really successful with hearts, and people that have had heart trouble, when we help them, they come around. One of the most beautiful stories I can tell you, and it's more detailed in the book, but I had a call one night from a person that's involved in organ transplants, and asked for help with one that was failing, and with a person that had received organs that was failing, a youngster, a young person. And I said, yeah, I'd love to help. Let's go do this. And so I went to that person in spirit, through this nurse's energy. I followed to this person, and I filled them full of healing love energy, full of healing energy, set great intent with them, watch them change colors. When I first saw them, they looked weak and pale. And as we were filling this person with love energy, they just looked bigger, stronger, healthier. You could see a difference in their skin. You can see a difference in how they were behaving and they were healing. While I was doing that, another young person walked into the room, and this person was gray and tired and exhausted. And when I got done with the first just child, I went to the second one and did the same thing. Just started filling this person up with love, with energy, with healing thoughts, and watched that person get their color back, get their strength back. And as we were sending extra love to this person, it started coming out of them. The love started flowing out of them, like you're filling up a bucket and it gets to the top and it pours out. Same type of thing. We were sending so much in, there was extra. And what this child was doing was sending this love out to their family. This family that had just lost them. It turned out that this was the donor, and it was sending love out to the family, helping them heal, helping them recover from losing this person. And while I was doing that, I was curious what kind of interaction I could have. And so I asked, what is your name? And it didn't tell me its name, but it said C. And so I'm thinking, okay, Charlie, Cedric, whatever name I could think of that started with a C. And it just kept telling me C. Repeated it multiple times. And we get done with the session. I go to bed. The next day I contact that nurse. The child that had received the organs was doing great, up walking around, healthy, strong, would be out of the hospital in a couple days. And I asked, can you tell me the name? I don't know if you can share with me the name of the donor, but I feel like I made contact and might have part of a name. And I was told, no, I shouldn't tell you the name. And I said, okay, well, and when I told you C, that's not the letter. This person told me a different letter. I need to keep it anonymous. So I said, well, I kept getting C. Is it like Cedric or Charlie? Can you at least tell me that? And she says, no, name's Cece. And so I was picking it up, but not interpreting it right. And it was just one of the best experiences I've ever had. I was so happy for the young person that got the organs, that was healthy and strong, and for the family of the donor who was now starting to heal because of the wishes and the love of the donor.
So you said you've been talking to me long enough to do one. What would the process be to do one? Is it a long process?
No, it actually goes fairly rapidly. It's something that I do. I would get where I'm comfortable, and I usually do a few at a time. I used to only be able to do 3 at a time, but I started using a dictation program so I can just talk about it while I'm doing it. It takes less energy than stopping, making notes, going in, and that. So I can do about 10 a day now. And what I do is I go into that state of where I'm in my quantum room. I cover myself with energy. I go to the quantum room, and I'll call you in. And so if it's you, I would call you in, and I would start off with Desi, the beagle. She would start sniffing around you, and until she found something that she didn't think should be on or in you. We would remove that and give that cleansing energy, that whatever we took off you. Say we took something that looked like a hat from your shoulder. And it's all kinds of odd things. They don't always make sense what we're removing. Sometimes the people understand it, sometimes they don't. And I don't interpret. I don't really know why they're manifesting this way. But say we take a hat off your shoulder, and we would cleanse that hat, give it love, let it heal. It would transform to something else, like a bird or a tree or something, and be back in its essence where it should be, so that it can give its energy to the universe the way it was meant to be. Then we would send cleansing energy to that spot we took it off, and then love energy to fill that area up and seal it and protect it so that nothing else got in there. And as this is happening, I would just be describing it. The dictation program would be copying it for me. And then when it's all complete, I'll send an email to the person letting them know what I found. So it starts off with the warrior team looks for problems, looks for things inside of a person and outside of them. We remove those things. We cleanse the items. We heal them, send them love, let them be their normal self. We do the same thing for the person. We cleanse them. Then we surround them with the love team that sends love energy to them and helps them heal and get better faster, and just overflowing with love. And then the final step is that I call in their 7 generations from the past, 7 generations from the future. And these are things that are more than just your blood, your DNA. So it's friends, it's people from your spirit group, it's people that are really important to you for whatever reason. So all that comes in. So somebody that's like an only child of an only child that has no children and are thinking, I can't have 7 generations. Yes, you can. 7 generations in the future, because it's people from your, it's even periphery. It's aunts and uncles family that's part of your future. It's all of that, plus people in your spirit group, plus people that you know. So yes, everybody would have the 7 generations front and back, and that's the final piece. And those, you just really need that protection and connection and being back involved. And that would be the process. And then I would send you all the notes of what I saw.
So you would do that basically without me. You wouldn't even need my help. You could just do that. So for instance, maybe we could do that. You could do that and then come back and tell me what you saw or email me. And then we could follow up and see if I notice any difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. I'd definitely be interested in that. As far as your books, do you want to let us know about your books and where people can pick them up?
Sure. I'll show you what it looks like. It's Slipstream Shaman. And as you look at that energy that's right there in the center of the person, that's what my energy looks like now. It's changed over the years. It started off it was light blue and kind of a ball, and now it's just changed to something that looks like maybe a sparkler, maybe shining light into a big diamond, something like that. And so it's evolved over time. But yeah, you can go, the best way is you can go to my website, slipstreamshaman.com. You can email me from there. There's a link that takes you to where you buy the book at Amazon, or you can send me an email. I would really encourage anybody that's interested in what we're talking about here to follow me on Instagram. That's where all the new things will be. We do group healings that are called Polymedella, which is many healings. And so I did a great one on road rage not too long ago that helped me a lot. And I know a lot of people can use that. And that'll be featured quite heavily in the next book that'll come out in the next month or so. It's going to have that polymedella in it, and it's going to be about trauma release. So for people, the reason I got interested in trauma release is that hernia operation that I had, the scar was horrible for years and years and years, painful, red, swollen. I did a trauma release on it, and within months, the pain was gone, the red was gone, and within a couple of years, I couldn't find the scar. So there's a lot of things that we hold on to energy-wise that keep us from healing. But yeah, the things I would encourage people to do is follow me on Instagram at Slipstream Shaman. You can ask for a healing. I am about a month behind, just so that nobody thinks I'm ignoring them. I'm just behind because there's been so many lately. And I don't charge for that or ask for a donation or trick you into, well, I did this one for free and now we'll get you set up for ones that you pay for. It's just a free healing that I do. But yeah, slipstreamshaman.com is the best way to find me.
Very good. Well, we appreciate your time. Learned about some new things today, such as shadow people and this type of quantum healing that I haven't been familiar with. So always interesting, and to hear your opinion on ghosts and your Bigfoot research. So I appreciate it, and I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to tell the fans.
Something that we just barely touched on was road rage. When I'm doing the healings on people, I find three different things. One is a companion that we talked about, and that's about 95% of what I find. It started out as something positive that is now causing you trouble. Then I also find parasites. These started as something with bad intention that gets on you and gets even worse intention. Then there's some otherworldly things that could be demons or aliens. I don't know what they are. But let's just think about what we're doing, what kind of energy we're sending out to the world. I know that when I was driving before I did the polymedella for me on road rage, I was so mad. I was mad at everybody. I thought they were all cutting me off on purpose, and I'm just yelling and screaming and thinking these horrible thoughts. I didn't like drive anybody off the road or anything like that, but just the horrible thoughts I was thinking about people, and I'm sure they don't even know that I existed, and I'm thinking they're doing it on purpose. So when you're driving, let's all take a deep breath and help each other out and think a little bit better thoughts, and see if we can't make the energy around us better by just cutting out that one part of our life, which is road rage.
Yeah, and I'm one that doesn't have road rage at all. And I always tell the people when I see them when they're driving, they can't hear you. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I envy you. But yeah, there's a lot of us crazy people that have the road rage, and I'm working on it, and I would like to be like you someday, Hannibal. That's what I'm working towards.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates.